A new product from Prop Monkey Studios. It's prime time. Did the shadow go right over my face? Okay, today we're going to talk about a new product called Prime, and I'm very excited about it. We've been working on it for a while. It is a primer coat or a first coat for EVA foam, and it does a few different things very well. First of all, it fills in those fine pores on top of the EVA foam. It also increases the adhesion between the foam and your top coat, your finish coat. And so that comes in really handy when you're taping and masking and spraying and stuff like that. It also goes down so fine that you don't need to sand it either, and that's really big. So let's begin with the demonstration. I'm going to first open a jar of Prime. And so when you buy it and open it for the first time, and I'm going to stir this around, you'll see it's a little separation going on. You're going to want to stir this up every time you use it, and you want to go down to the bottom and pull up the particles that are down below and mix it very thoroughly till everything looks pretty even. It is the particles that really help fill in those pores, and they tend to settle down in this emulsion. There we go. Okay, I'm going to show you how to apply Prime. Take a flat, dry brush. Let's dip some in there. And just smear it all over in different directions. Let's see, I'll probably do half of this so I can hold on to the other half. Okay, so I got it worked in there pretty good, and then I want to do a wipe back, smooth out the surface to get rid of any ridges that might dry that way. I don't want any brush strokes. And it dries pretty flat, so if you have minor brush stroke marks in there, they should flatten out just fine. Okay, and there it is. I'm going to hit it with the blow dryer. If you let it set, it'll take about 15 minutes to dry. If you hit it with a blow dryer, it takes about 2 minutes. Just make sure you keep your blow dryer a good foot or so away. You don't want the surface to heat up too much. Okay, it feels pretty good. I just want to make sure it's dry enough so when I put my second coat on, it doesn't reactivate the first coat and get a little gooey. Right now, I'm looking at it. It may be hard to see, but it's probably filled in maybe 95, 98 probably percent of all the pores. And then the second coat usually does the job. So let's put a second coat on. There we go. Quick wipe back. Get rid of any tall brushstroke grooves. There we go, that looks pretty good. And hair dryer time. Okay, that's looking pretty good. It looks like all the pores are filled in now, and when I'm touching it, it feels very smooth. But if there are any little bits of debris or a brushstroke mark in there, if you let it dry a good half hour, an hour, you can sand it with a 320 grit, which I will demonstrate in a little bit, but I'm going to let that set a little bit longer, and then that would smooth it out. The Prime is made with a certain viscosity, and so it's fairly thick. If you want it to spread even more smoothly, I guess that's the right way to say it, smoothly. If you want it to spread more evenly without the possibility of brush strokes in there, you can add a little water. So I am going to take a little cup here, pour a little of this Prime in there. It's probably good enough. Also, always keep the rim clean. The lid tends to stick. The adhesion property of Prime is really good, and you always want to make sure the rim is clean. So I have a little bit of the prime in here. I'm going to take some water, and I just want to put in just a few drops, not much. Let's see, about 5 drops in there. I'm going to mix it up. This will help thin it out, and it'll flow on much easier to the foam. Just a little bit more. And when it's all even, I can start brushing with this. I'm going to do it on the other side that I haven't coated yet. Put some on here. And right away I can feel how thin it's going down. And it's much easier to control this way. Now, because it's been thinned out, it may take more than 2 coats. Usually it takes about 3 coats. But what you can do, or I guess what the advantage is of this, is you're assured of a really nice thin coat without streaks. And I didn't even have to do any really white backs on that. That is very fine. So let me hit that with the blow dryer. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's very smooth, very smooth. You can see some streaks in there, but that's more visual than physical. And I see it has not filled in the 98% of the pores. It's a lot less, and that's why it takes about 3 coats for this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the second coat. Put some more on there. See, a little white back, get rid of any major streaks in there. That's probably good enough. Hit it with the blow dryer again. Okay, let's look at this. Wow, it actually did pretty good. It looks like it's down to about 99% of all the pores. Just to make it complete, 1 more coat, and then it should be perfect. And I'm going to put this coat on very thin. I don't need, I can really move this stuff around and spread it out more. There we go. That's probably good enough. And the streaks just none at all, which is nice. Okay, hit it with the dryer and it should be done. Okay, let's take a look at that, and that is actually looking really nice. Very smooth. I was able to control the flow and the smoothness much easier with just a little bit of water in the prime. And then that begs the question, why didn't I make it thinner to begin with? Well, we have some particle settling issues, and so I made it a little on the thick side so it's easy to keep the particles suspended longer. And but if you want to add a little water to it, it goes down much easier. Now, there are times you may want to put it on thick. Let's say you just want to kill the pores on the surface of your foam, and you want to increase the adhesion, but you're going to put some texture on top of this. And so just use the straight prime. You don't have to worry about wiping back or it settling smoothly because you're going to be putting some texture on top. But if you're going for something very smooth and you want more control, just add a little bit of water. Okay, let's talk about sanding this. It's been dry, at least this side, maybe 20 minutes. And so usually you should wait for an hour and it sands a lot better, but I think after 20 minutes we can get away with it. I am taking some 320 grit flexible sandpaper from 3M, and I'm just going to sand it. And you should see it chalk up pretty quick. Okay, I see chalky particles right away, and so it looks like it's sanding pretty good. And I'm not getting any little globs of goo on my sandpaper, so it looks like it's dry enough. And I can sand this pretty smooth. Yeah, there we go. That is super smooth. Now, with the side that I did added a little water to the prime, it's smooth enough already. There's no sanding that needs to be done. It's really gorgeous looking. So that's how it sands. Okay, let's talk about flexibility. Okay, this is on a 4mm foam, low density. So let me flex this, and it flexes really good. Okay, and of course this is freshly done, so it's going to flex a lot better. But if we let it dry a day, and let me get out another piece of foam. Here's a piece that I did yesterday, so it's been dried for 24 hours. And I have pieces that have been dried for months, and they're still pretty flexible. And so this is still really flexible. See, I can go back and forth, and it handles just fine. Prime only comes in one color. It's a light gray, and it's extremely translucent. So it's 95% plus translucent. So if I paint it on white foam, it looks pretty much white, just slightly darker. So let me go ahead and show that. Get my brush out here and add some prime. You can see how translucent it is. It's almost the exact same value as the white foam. So let me hit that with a blow dryer and put 2 coats on there. Okay, there we go. Let me put another coat on there and let's see what that looks like. Goes down very thin. That is looking really nice. Okay, hit that with the blow dryer. Okay, so here's our comparison. We have the uncoated area and we have the coated area. It's just slightly darker, but it still looks really good. So very easy to put all your bright colors on top of, your reds, your yellows. And I've also been asked from people who were testing this, can you add a color to it? And of course, you definitely can add a color to this. So I have a couple different colors up here. To add a color to this, I like using the Badger airbrush paint. It's called the Air Opaque. And I used to be an airbrush illustrator, and so I used a lot of this. So I'll put some of that in a little cup. A little bit of the prime. Good enough. Just a few drops. You don't want much in here, and you don't want to dilute the prime or else it'll lose its quality that we like so much. Okay, let's mix this. Okay, let's put some on the foam. So now we have a nice crimson red. Let's put it in a new area here. Still pretty translucent, but after you put on a couple coats, you'll get a fairly good first coat coloring on there. That way, if you're going with more red on top, you already have the advantage of one coat down. Okay, let's see what that looks like. It looks pretty good. Let's put another coat down. And with the addition of the pigment that you put in there, it may take 3 coats. You might be able to get away with 2 coats. It just depends on the pigment that you're using. I'd stay away from any tube acrylic paints. I just don't think it has the amount of pigment in there, so you want a highly pigmented airbrush color, which is going to work the best. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Just a couple little pores that still need some help. There are some larger pores that will appear now and then in some of the foam. And this stuff goes down so fine that it doesn't fill in any of those bigger pores, but it fills in 99.99% of all the small pores. So I'm going to put on one more coat, and then that should do it. And that looks good enough. Oh, nice. Okay, well, there we have it. A good solid red coat that will alleviate you having to do that extra red coat when you put your finish on top. So whatever red color you put on top, it should opaque right away. Okay, the question is, sure, it works great on a nice flat demonstration surface, but how well does it work on complexity? So I have right here a little demonstration that I put together of nice complex surface areas. So we have holes and grooves and edges and all sorts of things like that. For this, I'm probably going to add a little bit of the water to prime. So I'm going to show how to do that. You know, it might be best if I use a palette knife. Okay, I have a palette knife, that way I don't have to pour and mess up my rim here. So I'm just going to grab some of this and put it in there. And that is more than enough for what we're going to do. And let's add a little bit of water. There we go. And just make sure it's thoroughly stirred together to an even consistency. And let's use a bigger brush on this. There we go. That's a decent sized brush. And let's dip right into here. Now when I do this, I probably don't want to glob a whole bunch on at once, so just a little bit at a time. And just work it in there. And then I can work into my little groove areas there by jabbing. Okay. Go in here and do some jabbing. And then some wiping back in there. Cleaning up. Okay, a little wipe back. See where we're at on everything. Okay, those areas look pretty good. And just right around here, around the rivets. There we go, and I think that's probably good enough. You can do the edges also. I'm going to go ahead and get the edges. Okay, it's not going to fill in any of the deep grooves there. That'll take another product to do that. But it'll definitely get rid of all those fine pores and help increase the adhesion of your top coat onto the foam. So let's hit that with the dryer. Okay, that was a couple minutes of drying. And right away, most of it's pretty dry. Anywhere where it's a little bit lighter just means it hasn't dried yet because it's a little bit thicker. I could probably take a little stick and smooth out some of those. There's a little bit of some material in there. But in general, it turned out really nice. It's holding up the detail nicely. It's getting the edges. I know it needs another coat, maybe even two more, since it had that water added in there. So I'm going to do a couple more coats. On this last one, I'm not going to go into the grooves. I'm just going to put very little on my brush and just hit the flat areas that are on top. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. Okay, let's see what this looks like. It's looking pretty good. Any area that is very light color, it still needs a little bit more drying because it was put on thicker. Should all be dry in about an hour. I don't see any really globs that need sanding. Maybe a little bit on the edge here. There was some rough Dremel work there that once this dries in about an hour, I could probably take some sandpaper to it and even sand down that rough Dremel issues right there, and that would help quite a bit. But I think it applies very well, and so very smoothly. It might have helped if I had a little detail brush to work around the details instead of that big brush. But other than that, I think it did a very wonderful job. I've been asked how Prime does on a crush test. And if you haven't seen one of those before, you take EVA foam, you put a product coat on there, you let it dry, then you crush it, and then you reheat it up with a heat gun, and you see how easily the wrinkles come out, if they come out at all. So I have a piece of foam right here. This is 4mm EVA foam I got from TNT Cosplay. It is a regular density, so it's not a high density. It has 2 coats of Prime on it. I'm going to crush it, and then let's heat it up. Okay, I got my heat gun plugged in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and crush this. And I guess there's no other way around it other than to do this. There we go. So we have some nice wrinkles there, and it's crushed. I'm going to turn on the heat gun, probably on low. And I'm not going to get the gun too close to it. I'm going to let it gently warm up and then ease out, and it does pretty well. I'm keeping my fingers near the gun just so I make sure I don't get too close. My fingers will let me know if I'm getting too hot. And you can see the wrinkles coming right out of there very nicely, in fact. Let's see, there's just a little over here. There we go. But that did it. That got rid of all of them. So I'm really happy with that. So that turned out very nice. Okay, here comes the fun part where I talk about the adhesion quality of the Prime on the foam and your upper layer colors. So right here I have an example of 6 commonly used products that is on a untreated piece of EVA foam, and I am going to demonstrate how well it sticks with blue tape. No, not at all. I'm going to use gaffer tape, and although we don't use gaffer tape to mask off for EVA foam, but I just want to show you the strength that the Prime adds to paint. So I have little strips of gaffer tape right here, and I'm going to rub them on each one and pull off. And I should have told you what that was. That was Quick Seal. So right there, that's Quick Seal. What I have next here is some Liquitex heavy body paint. Then I have some Angelas in the pink, and then I have some black Hex Flex. I have some white Fine Finish, and I have some copper color Modern Masters. So let's take another piece of tape and pull that up, and of course the Liquitex comes right off. The Angelas usually sticks pretty good on raw foam, and yeah, it stuck a whole lot better than the others, but it's still peeling up. Let's check out the Hex Flex, and the Hex Flex is about as good as the Angela, so it's sticking pretty good. Let's check out the Fine Finish. That's surprising. I'm gonna rub it down even harder. Wait a second. There we go. That's usually how the Fine Finish usually behaves better than the other acrylics, but it's close to an Angela's. And let's go ahead and Modern Masters. And that comes up really easy. So a lot of the products that we put on top of the EVA foam, it sticks okay, but not really great. And I have another demo right here, but this particular piece of foam has been coated with 2 coats of prime first, and then we put down these different top coats on top of it. So let's go and get some more gaffer tape here. Rub it down really good and pull, and it sticks really good. Let's get another. All these pieces of tape are not, I'm not using the same tape. It's a new strip for each one. Rub it down really good, pull back. Wow. Okay, the Liquitex, which came up so easy, is not coming up at all. That's pretty good. And of course, I suspect the Angela is going to be beautiful too. Yeah, that's really nice. And the Hex Flex, just beautiful, beautiful. Another piece of tape. And the fine finish, I suspect, is going to be just perfect too. Really nice. And the one that came up the easiest, the Modern Masters, really, 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 really rub it. Look at that, sticks. So they all stick really, really well. Now, I just want to throw out a little disclaimer. With these water-based non-toxic products, it's not an absolute bond to the foam. In fact, if you get something sticky enough on there, you can probably pull it off. If you want an absolute bond, you're probably going to have to put down a contact cement wash or maybe even a light spray of plastic dip on top of it first, on top of your foam first. And then when you put the prime on it, it's going to be an absolute bond where you will not be able to pull the finish off without totally destroying the foam. That's pretty cool. You may be asking yourself, how smooth is this? Because you're watching a video and it's really hard to tell. And so I have gone ahead and put some coats of prime on half of this piece of foam. The foam is 4 millimeter regular density from TNT Cosplay. I heat setted a section of it, and you can see the quality difference. Unheated right here, and here it's been unheated, but 3 coats of the thinned out primer. And so now when I hold it at an angle, hopefully it'll catch the light in a way that you can actually see the quality. Okay, so you can see the different qualities and how what's underneath the prime is so far superior than the other as far as getting smoothness. Now, on the prime part, there's some brush strokes in there that I could have gotten rid of if I would have just done a quick light sanding with some 320 grit sandpaper. And I just happen to have a piece of foam that shows that. So this was unsanded, but it's still really smooth, even unsanded. And right here, I have a piece of foam that I sanded. And I have some little pit marks on the side where usually on my demo strips, they don't get any attention with the prime. But you can see how smooth that is. I'm really happy with the prime. Give it a try. Tell me what you think about it. And I think that's the end of my video demonstration. Is it awkward yet?
Now it is, yes.
Okay, now it's awkward.